What's up guys, JJ here, and it is time for another FM virtual stadium tour. That's right, I'm back feeling better than ever, so let's get on with this. And I have to apologise to start with here. As some of you may have already guessed, we're going to be taking a look around White Hart Lane today. And I have to apologise because as those of you who have subscribed and watched my videos quite regularly will notice, is that I tend to upload in each country at a time. And when I did all of my English stadiums to start off with, I actually skipped this one. I need to apologise because I missed it, because when I was going through them, I knew this was a stadium in the game, but whenever I tried to get to it, it just would throw up a generic stadium. It wouldn't let me see it. So I've actually had to fiddle around with the code of the game. I'm not too good at that sort of thing, but I've managed to get it to work. I'm not 100% sure how well this is going to hold up. But let's go through this video and try and just make it as good as we possibly can. But anyway, as I've already said, today we're going to be taking a look around White Hart Lane. It is the home stadium of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, otherwise known as to their fans as Spurs. Anyway, so the first fact I normally have for you in these types of things, it's a little way off today, but is the overall capacity, and this stadium does hold 36,240 fans when it's sold out. And that's really not a lot when you look at some of the stadiums I've done for this series. 36,000 is probably one of the lowest amounts I've done. But anyway, as we take a look around the stadium, I'm just gonna guide you through some of the history of this stadium, because it has been around over 120 years. So it's quite an old stadium when you think about it. Anyway, let's start then. When Tottenham moved to this stadium officially in 1899. 1899. Just let that sink in for a second. And it was a site at the time they rented off of a nearby brewery. They moved in with a few portable mobile stands, and ta-da, White Hart Lane was born. Their first official match here was played on the 4th of September 1899 between Tottenham Hotspur and Notts County. Spurs did win that match 4-1. Anyway, in the following years they expanded the stadium. The small ground was quickly expanded in the following 6 years, mostly with a main stand covered with a roof and wooden blanketed terraces. This resulted in a capacity of about 40,000. Now, if you think about it, wooden stadiums are something we really don't see nowadays, and that's ever since the Bradford disaster. If you don't know what happened, there was a match going on at Bradford City Football Club, and a fire broke out in the stadium, and because the majority of the stadium was made out of wood, the fire spread quickly, and it's unfortunate, but a few people died during that match. That's why in the 1970s, 1980s there was a huge change in how lots of the stadiums, not just in England but around the world, were changed. A lot of wooden terraces were pulled down and were replaced by concrete or brick terraces. And if there were clubs really thinking forward, they would have a lot of glass in there, of course, because we see skyscrapers all over the world nowadays made up out of glass. But anyway, yeah, it caused that uproar, and I suppose these wooden stands would have also suffered from that. But anyway, in 1905, these wooden stands came up, and it increased the capacity at the time to about 40,000. Over the next decade, though, that's the next 10 years, the redevelopment, the building of White Hart Lane continued, and the famous stadium architect Archibald Leach was actually brought in to design a new main grandstand for them. And a few years after that, the East Stand was built, which I believe is one of the goal ends. And this meant that the ground had taken a rather rectangular shape, and it also meant that the overall capacity had been raised to about 50,000 spaces. But that wasn't the end of it. White Hart Lane continued to be developed into the early 1920s, and by the end of the 1920s, both of the ends of the stadium had covered roofs as well. In 1934, the East Stand got further developed and enlarged, resulting in a capacity of about 80,000 spaces. And this was actually in 1938. The record attendance for the stadium was set in a league match between Tottenham and Sunderland at 75,038. But as I say with a lot of these, you have to remember that at the time it was standing room for the majority of the stadium, which meant that people were packed in like sardines. It was very unsafe, and it's why we're not likely to see that attendance record get broken anytime soon, because it just wouldn't happen nowadays. We're so health and safety conscious that that something like that, having that many people in a confined space, would just not happen. So as I always say, you have to take that with a bit of a pinch of salt. Anyway, after 1938, in the following decades, the stadium remained largely unchanged to about 1960, to about the 1960-1980s. The stadium remained largely unchanged until about the 1980s, but from 1960s onwards, the overall capacity of the stadium came down over and over again, just because they were replacing these terraces that packed people in like sardines with seated areas, as that became more popular and more fashionable within football stadiums. Anyway, in 1980, the West Stand, so the opposite of the Big East Stand we saw before, was demolished and replaced by an all-new seater stand, which opened in 1982. Once again, we see the East Stand got extensively renovated, and in 1989 we saw further refurbishments and the conversion of the stadium into an all-seater stadium. So we're seeing finally by the 1990s the completion of what they started in 1960, and that the whole stadium became a seater stadium, much like how you would see the vast majority of stadiums around today. The most recent change to the stadium was made in 1998, where a second tier was built on the Paxton Road members stand. I believe that's the facing grandstand of the club, so it would be the one we're looking at on screen now, where we see that huge second tier come up, just to match the rest of the stadium. And this would be a good point to say, I know this stadium isn't much like what you would find in real life. I've actually been to White Hart Lane. I do live in London, and it doesn't look anything like what it does excuse me, in this game. You really have to go and see it to believe it. It's really old, it's got loads of character, and the atmosphere on match day is actually really good. One thing they should, I think, have in the game is that in real life, if you look on the roof of that corner there's a sort of commentators area. It's like a big sphere where I believe the commentators and everybody doing media stuff goes and sits. It's really strange, and I haven't seen it at any other stadiums in the world. So it's actually quite an interesting thing, and you know, I say they should have it in the game, but if you're only going to put it in one stadium, what's the point, to be honest? Anyway, moving on, capacity of White Hart Lane has remained the same, incredibly limited. If you have a look on something like Google Maps, you'll see that White Hart Lane is in the middle of London, and there are houses all around. There's absolutely no space to extend it. Tottenham do have plans. What they've done is they've bought a school which is situated right next to White Hart Lane, and what they want to do is they want to turn White Hart Lane about 90 degrees on its side, so that and then just make it bigger, sort of expand it out so that they can increase the capacity of it. And they're just they're trying to get funding for that desperately. They have talked about other things like trying to move into the Olympic Stadium, but West Ham did of course win that battle in the end. So this looks like their only real viable option, unless they're going to move miles and miles to find some space to build a brand new stadium. Anyway, yeah, and as I say, that move would leave them with a capacity of about 56,000, they're reckoning. So it could be a viable way to move forward. They are of course a large club with such a small stadium. It reminds me sort of Portsmouth before they had their great downfall. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I know it's been quite a long episode and I've talked you through quite a lot of stuff, but I'm excited to finally be able to get this stadium working, and I'm looking forward to releasing this. So apart from that, thanks for watching, guys. Please remember to hit like and subscribe on this video. Also remember to check us up on Facebook and Twitter at FM Stadium Tour. Give us a like and a follow over there. You can even check out our very own website, www.fmstadiumtour.com. I have managed to get it up and running, so please go and visit there as well. But apart from that, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Laters!